Talking Textiles Lesson 2, Recap. We've done this before. I'm quickly going to go through it to see if you, just to refresh your memory. In our lesson number 2, we tried to collect visual information to develop our ideas. We chose one of these stories and we read all of these ones. I'm not going to read them for you because we've already done that. Then, afterwards, we discussed what images you could think of, what images you thought of when you were reading the story. Again, we've already done that. Then we started to represent the stories without using words. Remember, we did our storyboards. How will you convey the meaning and events of the story using only pictures was something that we also discussed in class, and everyone created a storyboard. Not all of you have finished it, but you've all started. So that was just a brief recap of lesson number 2. Just to refresh your memory, I'm going to go into my lesson number 3. So this is Talking Textiles lesson number 3. Today's learning objective, meaning that at the end of this lesson we will have experimented with different ways of using textiles to create different effects. First of all, I want you to take a look at this graphic image. It's obviously created on the computer. So how would you recreate this image using textiles? Have a think of how you could do that best. Then I want you to have a look at this image. How could you recreate this image using textiles? Is it going to be a different image, or will it be exactly the same? Painting. You can add color and detail by using a variety of different painting techniques. We've studied some of these techniques in class already. You can use printing to make a repeating pattern or to easily make various shapes. So here they used fingerprinting, or hand printing, sorry, not fingerprinting. But you can use all sorts of different techniques. We've done some of it in school. You can make your own stamp. You can make your own pattern. You can make your own template. You can use fabric paints. I'm looking at this image. You can use fabric paints to paint pictures, backgrounds, or patterns directly onto the fabric. Or you can dye fabric different colors to create the effects you want. Some of you have done this before. You can layer different fabrics and materials of different colors to create different effects. You can also do quilting. Some of you might have a quilt in your bedroom. Quilting adds textures to a piece. It involves layering fabrics between padding and then stitching them together. The stitching can be used to create different effects and images, or you can quilt different sections of materials together. You can do this by hand, or you can do that using a sewing machine. I'm assuming that this one has been done on a sewing machine. You could even glue these on. It's not going to have the exact same effect, but that's also something you could do. Stitching. Stitching does not involve gluing. A simple way to add detail to fabric is to stitch images or patterns onto the fabric. You could try using thin or thick thread to see what different effects you could create. You can also use lots of different colors. That's going to take you some time, but the result is really nice. Can you see that these are all hand stitched? You could also do this on a sewing machine, but that's going to require a lot of practice to make them all precise. Adding objects. It's quite simple to glue or sew objects such as buttons, sequins, or wool onto fabric to create effects. You can use these to represent other objects or simply use them to create patterns. such as the ones that we've just seen. You can try using beads sequence to add some sparkle to some of your objects. These buttons down here and strips of trim add texture to the edge. Ooh, I can't really see everything through this phone very well. Wool has been used here, right, to give the effects of a chimney. Here it has been used. Here it has been used. This is felt. Beads, felt has been used in the background. Wool has been used here as well to create shapes. It's very easy to create shapes with wool. You could try using beads as sequence to add detail. You could even paint onto this, couldn't you? So you use different techniques in one. Which of these techniques would you use to help you recreate this image using textiles? Would you use wool? Would you use felt? Would you use fabric? It doesn't have to be felt. Would you use a painting technique? Would you use buttons or other objects? Which of these techniques could you use to help you recreate this image using textiles? What would give you the best result? What techniques could you use here? Right. I am going to attach your activity to this email, to this video, and you'll send it back to me, please. So now we've had a look at some different techniques, so let's go back to the very beginning again. How would you best create this? What about this? Would you use printing? Would you use fabric paints? Would you dye your fabrics different colors to create sort of the effects that you would like? This one, I would say, might be a good idea to use for this one, because you have lots of different effects that do not necessarily have to be super precise. Then we also discussed layering with fabrics. You can use different materials to layer as well. And we discussed quilting, where we sew to add texture to a piece. There was also the stitching. That might work well if you want to frame something, for example, or make little details. And we talked about adding lots of different objects into your techniques. Right, so have a little think of how you could best recreate this image using some of the techniques that you've just learned.